Psychiatric is supported by readers who value evidence-based psychiatric analysis of politics, culture, and the strange shit happening around us. Become a paid subscriber today and receive 15% off forever. Your support keeps this publication independent and helps fund deeply researched articles like this one. Sunday Diagnosis: Paranoid Personality Traits and the President Who Sees Enemies Everywhere, by Rick Leach, MSN, APRN, PMHNP-BC. On Thursday night, Donald Trump used a nationally televised address to revive his claims about the 2020 election, accuse China of compromising American voter data, attack members of the intelligence community, and pressure Congress to pass stricter federal voting laws. Trump announced the declassification of intelligence that he said showed China had acquired approximately 220 million American voter files. He called the alleged breach an unprecedented election security threat and suggested that intelligence officials had suppressed information about it. The release material did not establish that China altered voter registrations, ballots, vote totals, or the outcome of the 2020 election. Previous intelligence assessments found no evidence that China or another foreign actor manipulated the technical results of the election Trump lost. Some of the material reportedly emphasized how difficult large-scale vote manipulation would be, rather than proving that it occurred. Trump, nevertheless, presented the information as validation of a familiar worldview. China compromised the system. Intelligence officials hid the truth. The deep state betrayed him. Voting systems cannot be trusted. Media organizations that declined to broadcast the speech were participating in a plot and, according to Trump, should have their licenses revoked. There is always someone conspiring against Donald Trump. Every allegation leads back to the same conclusion. Trump is the victim. Trump alone recognizes the danger, and Trump needs greater power to protect himself and the country from the people supposedly persecuting him. Welcome back to Sunday Diagnosis, a necessary clinical disclaimer. I have never evaluated Donald Trump, and I am not diagnosing him with paranoid personality disorder. A psychiatric diagnosis requires direct assessment, a clinical history, evaluation of functioning, collateral information when appropriate, and consideration of alternative explanations. Speeches, interviews, social media posts, and news reports cannot establish a diagnosis. Public behavior can still be examined through a psychiatric lens. Paranoid personality traits may include persistent suspiciousness, questioning the loyalty of others, interpreting ambiguous events as threatening, assigning hostile motives, holding grudges, and perceiving attacks that may not be apparent to others. These characteristics exist on a spectrum. Prominent paranoid traits do not automatically mean someone meets criteria for a personality disorder. Suspicious and persecutory thoughts also occur throughout the general population at varying levels of severity. Freeman et al., 2005. Thursday's speech did not prove that Trump has a psychiatric disorder. It offered another public example of a political worldview organized around betrayal, hidden plots, institutional corruption, and personal persecution. The president, who can never simply lose. Psychologically healthy adults can experience defeat without constructing an elaborate enemy responsible for it. They may feel angry, embarrassed, or unfairly treated. They can still tolerate the possibility that they lost because voters chose someone else, their strategy failed, or the evidence did not support their position. Trump has never publicly processed the 2020 election that way. When he loses, someone cheated. When a court rules against him, the judge is corrupt. When prosecutors investigate him, the justice system has been weaponized. When journalists report something he dislikes, the media become enemies of the people. When Republicans contradict him, they become weak or disloyal. When intelligence agencies reject his claims, they become part of the deep state. When television networks decline to air his speech, they become part of a plot. The cast changes. The psychological structure stays the same. Paranoid cognition can protect the ego from an unbearable conclusion. Failure becomes persecution. Criticism becomes conspiracy. Accountability becomes an attack. The individual never has to examine his own decisions because every negative consequence originated somewhere outside him. Trump did not lose. The election was stolen. His claims were not disproven. The evidence was suppressed. The networks did not make an editorial decision. They joined the conspiracy. Every contradiction reveals another enemy. Every failure to prove the allegation becomes evidence of a deeper cover-up. He seems to forget who was president. Trump describes the 2020 election as though it occurred under a hostile government he had no authority over. Donald Trump was the president. His appointees led the Department of Justice, the intelligence community, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the federal agencies responsible for monitoring foreign interference and protecting election infrastructure. If China conducted a massive operation against the election, it occurred while Trump occupied the White House. If intelligence officials concealed crucial information, they did so inside the executive branch he led. If federal agencies failed to protect election systems, those agencies operated under his administration. If the deep state defeated the elected government, Trump is arguing that a hidden government successfully overpowered the actual government while he was running it. Trump wants the presidency to be powerful enough to receive credit for every success, and somehow powerless whenever responsibility arrives. Success proves his strength. Failure proves sabotage. His administration was supposedly the strongest and most effective in American history, yet unidentified enemies apparently controlled the intelligence community, concealed election threats, compromised institutions, and removed him from office while he was commander-in-chief. Those stories do not fit comfortably together. He cannot claim absolute command when seeking praise and complete helplessness when accountability arrives. The document said less than Trump claimed. Foreign governments collect data, conduct influence operations, probe infrastructure, and exploit political divisions. China's reported acquisition of voter information deserves scrutiny. It does not prove that China changed votes. A vulnerability means something could happen. An attempted intrusion means someone tried to gain access. A foreign influence operation may seek to shape public opinion. Evidence is still required to demonstrate that ballots, registrations, tabulations, or election results were altered. Trump compressed these separate categories into one ominous narrative. Potential access, cybersecurity vulnerabilities, influence activity, intelligence collection, and actual vote manipulation were treated as pieces of the same established conspiracy. The intelligence assessment produced during his first administration concluded that no foreign actor altered voter registration, ballots, vote counting, or the reporting of results in the 2020 election. The newly released material did not overturn that conclusion. Trump began with suspicion and interpreted the information through the conclusion he already preferred. That is a conclusion searching for evidence. Paranoia and conspiracy beliefs are related. Paranoia usually centers on the belief that others intend to harm the individual. Conspiracy beliefs involve suspicions that powerful groups are secretly coordinating harmful events. Research suggests they are distinct but related systems. Both can involve mistrust, heightened threat perception, hostile attribution, and a tendency to explain negative outcomes through malevolent intentions. Paranoia is often more personally referential, while conspiracy narratives commonly describe threats against a larger group. Al-Swibani et al., 2022, Greenberg et al., 2022. Trump repeatedly merges them. China is compromising our elections, but the story returns to the election he lost. Intelligence officials are deceiving the country, but their central offense is contradicting him. The media are betraying the public, but the alleged plot emerges when networks decline to broadcast his speech. His grievance becomes the nation's grievance. An attack on Trump becomes an attack on America. Investigating Trump becomes persecution of conservatives. Rejecting his claims becomes participation in the conspiracy. Every paranoid system needs enemies. A political movement organized around grievance requires a constant supply of villains. Immigrants are invading. Judges are corrupt. Teachers are indoctrinating children. Scientists are manipulating data. Election workers are stealing ballots. Journalists are manufacturing stories. Republicans who challenge Trump are rhinos. Federal employees belong to the deep state. Intelligence officials suppress evidence. Networks join plots. The belief system becomes self-sealing. A court rejects the allegation. The court is compromised. An audit finds no widespread fraud. The auditors are involved. An intelligence assessment contradicts the claim. Officials concealed the truth. A document fails to prove manipulation. The decisive evidence must remain hidden. A network declines to air the speech, the media are part of the plot. Contradictory evidence no longer weakens the belief. It proves that the conspiracy is larger than anyone realized. You cannot disprove a theory that assigns everyone who disagrees with it a role in the conspiracy. The brain prefers an intentional enemy. Humans naturally search for causes, detect patterns, and infer agency. Those abilities are essential for survival, but they can also lead us to perceive intention and coordination where none exists. Complicated events feel as though someone must have designed them. Randomness is emotionally unsatisfying. Structural explanations feel distant and abstract. An intentional enemy provides a cleaner story. Research has linked conspiracy beliefs with illusory pattern perception, meaning the tendency to perceive meaningful connections in unrelated or random information. Von Proyen et al., 2018. These explanations may also become more attractive when people experience uncertainty, diminished control, or difficulty understanding consequential events. Douglas et al., 2017, Von Proyen and Douglas, 2018. An American election is enormously complex. It involves millions of voters, thousands of jurisdictions, state laws, ballot deadlines, cybersecurity, equipment, turnout patterns, human error, and ordinary unpredictability. Powerful enemies stole it is easier to process. It identifies a villain. It converts uncertainty into certainty. It transforms helplessness into anger. It allows a leader to present himself as the only person strong enough to defeat the hidden forces supposedly threatening everyone. Confirmation bias keeps the story alive. Confirmation bias is the tendency to notice and remember information supporting an existing belief while discounting evidence that challenges it. Motivated reasoning goes further. People may unconsciously use their reasoning abilities to reach the conclusion they emotionally prefer. Intelligence and education do not necessarily eliminate this process. In politically charged situations, stronger cognitive skills can help people construct more sophisticated defenses of what they already want to believe. Kahan et al., 2017, Kunda, 1990. Thursday's presentation showed how this works. Evidence that China collected voter information became evidence of election manipulation. Potential vulnerabilities became proof that the system was compromised. Documents that failed to demonstrate altered votes were presented as support for claims that votes had been altered. Information consistent with Trump's suspicions was elevated. Contradictory material was minimized or ignored. The speech looked evidence-based, while repeatedly asking the audience to make leaps the evidence did not support. When politics becomes personal identity. Political affiliation now functions as a social identity for many Americans. People process political information partly through the need to protect the reputation and status of their group. Facts associated with an opposing side may feel like attacks rather than neutral information. Van Bovel and Pereira, 2018. Trump transformed political support into personal loyalty. The question stopped being whether a policy worked. The question became whether you were with Trump or against him. This can develop into identity fusion, in which the boundary between personal identity and attachment to a leader becomes unusually porous. A threat against the leader may feel like a direct attack against the follower. Research has found that stronger fusion with Trump was associated with support for more extreme pro-leader positions and actions. This mechanism is not unique to Trump or Republicans. It can emerge whenever followers become intensely fused with a political leader. Kunst et al., 2019. His humiliation becomes their humiliation. His anger becomes their anger. His enemies become their enemies. His revenge begins to feel like justice. Defending him begins to feel like self-defense. Part of a plot. One of the most revealing moments came when Trump attacked media organizations that declined to broadcast the speech live. He did not describe it as an editorial decision. He called it a plot and suggested broadcasters should lose their licenses. The psychological progression happened immediately. An organization made a decision he disliked. The decision became hostile. The hostility became coordinated. The coordination became a conspiracy. The conspiracy became another reason to distrust everyone except him. Editorial independence became sabotage. Refusing to amplify him became proof that he needed to be amplified. This is how conspiracy narratives defend themselves. Threat creates a demand for authority. Threat changes cognition. When people perceive danger, attention narrows. Ambiguous information appears more threatening. People become vigilant for betrayal and may prefer certainty, conformity, decisiveness, and strong authority. Research has found that perceived social threats can activate authoritarian attitudes and increase demands for conformity, particularly among people already predisposed toward authoritarian responses. Feldman and Stenner, 1997. Stenner, 2005. Trump described the election system as dangerously vulnerable, invoked foreign interference and concealed intelligence, and urged Congress to pass the Save America Act, which would impose additional federal voting requirements. Create the threat. Declare that ordinary institutions cannot handle it. Present yourself as the only person who understands it. Demand greater authority. Frightened populations are more likely to accept restrictive policies when they are presented as protection. Preparing supporters to reject the next election. The speech arrived fewer than 4 months before the 2026 midterm elections. Fraud allegations made before voting begins can function as psychological inoculation. Supporters are taught in advance that only one result is legitimate. If Trump's party wins, the system worked. If Republicans lose, foreign actors, dishonest officials, mail ballots, voting systems, the deep state, or the media must have succeeded. The conclusion is chosen before the ballots are counted. This is conditional acceptance of democracy based on personal victory. Trump accepts the legitimacy of elections that empower him and questions the legitimacy of elections that reject him. That pattern is less about election security than outcome-dependent trust. Paranoia is politically useful. We should not assume every suspicious statement reflects sincere belief. Political leaders can use paranoid rhetoric strategically. Fear motivates supporters, weakens institutional resistance, and creates justification for expanded authority. Trump repeats a claim. Supporters validate it. Loyal media amplify it. Government officials search for material supporting it. Contradictory voices disappear. The claim is eventually repeated from behind the presidential seal. Personal grievance becomes official government messaging. Whether Trump sincerely believes every allegation is less important than what the rhetoric permits him to do. It allows him to discredit elections before votes are counted. It allows him to portray oversight as sabotage. It allows him to remove officials who refuse personal loyalty. It allows him to describe independent media as conspirators. It allows him to demand more power to fight enemies whose existence never has to be conclusively demonstrated. The threat is always urgent. The decisive evidence is always about to be revealed. The conspiracy is always larger than anyone realized. The leader always needs more power to stop it. Convenient as hell. Watch whom he asks you to fear. Thursday's address did not establish that the 2020 election was stolen. It showed how Trump constructs political reality. He identified a foreign enemy. He accused intelligence officials of concealment. He invoked the deep state. He treated vulnerabilities as evidence of actual manipulation. He attacked media organizations as participants in a plot. He used the resulting fear to demand passage of his preferred legislation. Real conspiracies exist. Governments lie. Officials become corrupt. Foreign powers interfere in political systems. Voting technology should be secured, tested, audited, and improved. Those realities make evidence more important. They do not justify transforming every suspicion into fact, every vulnerability into proof, every disagreement into betrayal, or every defeat into sabotage. The psychiatric concern is the pattern. A leader who interprets criticism as persecution, defeat as theft, disagreement as disloyalty, editorial judgment as conspiracy, and accountability as an attack creates a country that is permanently frightened and angry. There will never be enough investigations to reassure him. There will never be enough loyalty to satisfy him. There will never be a final enemy. The paranoid political system survives by finding the next one. On Thursday night, Trump told America that foreign governments, intelligence officials, election systems, states, and media organizations could not be trusted. The only person left standing outside the conspiracy was Donald Trump. And that was the whole point. Stay curious, stay grounded, and keep diagnosing the bullshit. References: Al-Suhibani A., Shevlin M., Freeman D., Sheaves B., and Bentel R.P. 2022. Why conspiracy theorists are not always paranoid. Conspiracy theories and paranoia form separate factors with distinct psychological predictors. PLOS 1-17-4 E02590553. doi.org/10.1371/journal.p1.0259053. Associated Press, 2026, July 16th. The latest. Trump delivers primetime address to the nation. Associated Press. Douglas K.M., Sutton R.M., and Chichaka A., 2017. The Psychology of Conspiracy Theories. Current Directions in Psychological Science, 26-6, 538-542. doi.org/10.177/09637214177182661. Feldman S. and Stenner K. 1997. Perceived Threat and Authoritarianism. Political Psychology, 18-4, 741-770. doi.org/10.1/J.1467-9221.1 997.tb00171.x. Freeman D., Garrity P.A., Bebbington P.E., Smith B., Rawlinson R., Fowler D., Kuipers E., Ray K., and Dunn G., 2005. Psychological Investigation of the Structure of Paranoia in a Non-Clinical Population. British Journal of Psychiatry, 186, 5, 427-435. doi.org/10.1192/Britty5. Doreenberg A., Bell V., and Raihani N.J., 2022. Paranoia and Conspiracy Thinking. Current Opinion in Psychology, 47, 100 and 1362. doi.org/10.1016/J.copsic.doi.01. Kahan D.M., Peters E., Dawson E.C., and Slovic P., 2017. Motivated Numeracy and Enlightened Self-Government. Behavioral Public Policy, 1-154-86. doi.org/10.1017/BPP.2016.2. Kunda, Z., 1990. The Case for Motivated Reasoning. Psychological Bulletin, 108, 3, 480-498. doi.org/10.03/7/003/909.108.3.480. Kunst J.R., Davidio, J.F., and Thompson L., 2019. Fusion with political leaders predicts willingness to persecute immigrants and political opponents. Nature Human Behavior, 3, 1180-1189. doi.org/10.103/8/41562-019-0708-1. Reuters, 2026, July 16th. With midterms on deck, Trump delivers primetime speech on election security. Reuters, 2026, July 17th. Trump alleges China committed interference in 2020 election. Reuters, Stenner K., 2005. The Authoritarian Dynamic, Cambridge University Press. doi.org/10.1017/CBO 9780511614712. Van Bavel, J.J., and Pereira A., 2018. The Partisan Brain, an identity-based model of political belief. Trends in Cognitive Sciences, 22-3. 213 to 224. doi.org/10.16/j.tix.2018.05.003. Van Proygen, J.W., Douglas, K.M., and De Inocencio, C. 2018. Connecting the dots. Illusory pattern perception predicts belief in conspiracies and the supernatural. European Journal of Social Psychology, 48, 320 to 335. doi.org/10.1002, 335. Van Proygen, J.W., and Douglas, K.M., 2018. Belief in Conspiracy Theories, Basic Principles of an Emerging Research Domain. European Journal of Social Psychology, 48-7, 897 to 908. doi.org/10.1002/EJSP.253.